I'm excited to get started on this next panel we're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking about state level reforms and kind of progress we've seen. We've got Brett there and Hamilton staying with us. And then we got Matt Brockmeyer joining us. Matt's an attorney from Colorado who has a fascinating business model that he's working with of a vertically integrated healing center in Colorado. And then we also have Ken with us, who I'm just going to step aside and let Ken jump into his presentation here on lessons learned from cannabis.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm Ken Walsky. I'm a registered nurse. I'm an RN for almost 50 years now. I'm executive director of the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey, a 501c3 nonprofit education that is 20 years old now. So there's our contact information. And you want it to go forward? No. I got involved in medical marijuana in 1993 when I went to a High Times Cannabis Cup, and I met this gentleman by the name of James Burton. He was a glaucoma patient who was going blind. Glaucoma is one of the leading causes of blindness in America. No medication was helping him. He started using marijuana when he was about 30. His ophthalmologist told him to continue using it. He noticed an almost immediate improvement in his vision. He was a farmer. He grew some marijuana on his farm. The government found it growing there. They arrested him. They tried him. They convicted him. He spent a year in prison, part of that time in a maximum security prison. And I was a nurse supervisor in New Jersey's only maximum security prison at the time, and I knew exactly what he was going through. And while he was in prison, the government took his home and his farm for growing that marijuana. When he was released, he fled America. He became he went over to Amsterdam to live for the rest of his life. That's where he is now. And that, to me, was the greatest case of social injustice I had ever encountered. And I vowed to do something about it. I studied the issue for another 10 years or so, and I found that this guy was just the tip of the iceberg. This was happening all over the country. People were getting brutalized by the government for their use of marijuana, sometimes on advice of a doctor. I took my information to the New Jersey State Nurses Association and asked them if they wouldn't endorse medical cannabis, and they did in 2002, and they recognized the therapeutic value, thank you, and safety of medically recommended marijuana, and I realized that was more than the federal government did, and more than the federal government does to this day. And they also wanted, a legal access to it in New Jersey. So I'm very proud to be a nurse. I've been an RN, as I said, for almost 50 years now, and nurses are supportive, non-judgmental patient advocates. They're also, when they get up and they testify in the legislature about a bill, people pay attention to them. So they're very good people to have on your side. They're very good coalition advocates. In 2003, in 2003, I met Jim Miller, who was pushing his wife's wheelchair around the state of New Jersey. His wife, Cheryl Miller, had multiple sclerosis, and the only thing that helped her was medical cannabis. And when we met, we decided that we needed to form a coalition of individuals and organizations that would advocate for medical cannabis, and so we did. And the important thing was finding patients like that and having them tell their stories. You don't become anecdotal evidence anymore when you're up there telling a personal story about this. You become, obvious evidence. It's hard to deny people this when they're telling the personal stories, especially when it's not patient after patient is telling the story. And some of our strongest advocates were parents of children who had seizure disorders. If you want to be somebody standing in a way between a parent and the child who needs that medicine, that's a very uncomfortable place to be. So we got an awful lot of patients together who would tell their stories, and that's well, in contacting elected officials. I contacted every elected official in the state of New Jersey to have them get the bill. And we got a bill introduced in January of 2005 and signed into law by Governor Corzine 5 years later. And medical marijuana became available in 2012. I did want to go back over, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. Uh, uh, just wanted to talk about some of the other things that were very important in getting this op-eds, contacting regional media in those 5 years, writing a lot of op-eds and letters to the editors, most read part of the newspaper, inviting the media to our organizations and events, attending community events and putting out our table of information, holding press conferences. When people got arrested, we would go and demonstrate at the courthouse. And we also had state house rallies, and we have regular email meetings. We have regular monthly meetings and email updates, and very active on social media also. So we endorsed recreational use of cannabis in 2014, and we joined a larger coalition of organizations that were supporting recreational cannabis or adult use cannabis, including the New Jersey United for Marijuana Reform, the New Jersey ACLU, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, Municipal Prosecutors Association, that was a very big one, and the NAACP. And we became the 13th state in the U.S. to fully legalize cannabis in 2021. So we're very grateful for many of the national organizations that I've been a member of for many years. Drug Policy Alliance, Patients Out of Time, NORML. I joined NORML in 1973. Marijuana Policy Project, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, DRC Net, Americans for Safe Access. We still have ongoing goals, including home cultivation rights, insurance coverage for medical cannabis, access to all plant medicine, and medical access for all qualified hospitalized patients and institutionalized New Jersey residents. I worked in state institutions for 25 years, and I know there are many patients within these institutions who qualify for medical cannabis, who would have their health improved by medical cannabis, and it would cost less to run these institutions. And furthermore, if you go into a hospital and you have to stop using your seizure medicine, that can be very dangerous for you. Talk about do no harm. So thank you.
Thanks, Ken. I think there's a lot of parallels we can really see between the cannabis legalization and psychedelics legalization as we look at things like, kind of leveraging relationships with veteran communities as a, as a bridge communication wise, often with kind of more conservative sort of political sort of sides of things. They're more amenable to the notion of a veteran. Also, kind of the moving from a medicalized model to a adult use model. Will we see that with psychedelics? It remains to be seen, but many people are tending to have that expectation there. Cannabis also too suffers from the same conflict in laws between federal illegality and state legality in a few jurisdictions there. Just like cannabis, we exist in this strange cognitively dissonant world where we have legality and illegality at the same time. That being said, we got 3 different states out west that have moved forward and made some rather impressive changes. The first one I'm going to comment on is Oregon, that passed in November 2020 with 55% support, Proposition 109, that created adult use psilocybin services program with a regimented licensing framework. You have to be 21 plus, mandatory PrEP, integration, administration sentences, and they created a series of class of licenses for facilitators, service centers, manufacturers, testing labs. One of the things to note, though, is Oregon is a highly regulated state with limiting scalability in the business models. But also one of the aspects too, it's important to know too, was that Oregon gave local control to local jurisdictions. So local municipalities can ban healing centers. I'll jump into next. The second state I'm going to talk about, Colorado. They passed Proposition 122. They do not have a limit. Local communities cannot ban healing centers, but they can limit and regulate time, place, manner, and land use. So that's kind of a difference with Colorado. But the biggest difference is Colorado really goes a lot further. It's the most sweeping piece of reform in the nation regarding drug policy, in my opinion. It legalized a number of plant medicines, including psilocybin, psilocin, DMT, and also mescaline, not from peyote, and ibogaine. People can, yes. Um, People can cultivate their own. Adults can possess it. They can gift it to each other without remuneration, and they can also use it collectively. Big differences from any other jurisdiction. Creates a series of categories of facilitators and clinical facilitators, healing centers, manufacturers, testing facilities, and training programs throughout that. I will now stop speaking myself and let Brett jump into telling us about New Mexico, where Brett is a criminal defense attorney doing the Lord's work down there. And he will tell you about New Mexico's program.
Yes, thank you, Robert. So I am an attorney based here in New Mexico, and earlier this year, we became the third state to legalize medical psilocybin therapy, the first state to do so legislatively. So that was through Senate Bill 219. That did it's the Medical Psilocybin Act, so not nearly as sweeping as Colorado's in terms of personal use or possession. Um, More in line with Oregon. However, it does allow for a lot more flexibility than the Oregon statute. So that was passed into law earlier this year. We're currently in the rulemaking process. And the program is supposed to be coming online 2 years from now. They gave themselves 2 years to set it up, and December 2027 is when it's supposed to go live.
I think one of the things that's really unique, I don't know if you mentioned me, but the fact that we have, all the other states here, we have voter approved initiatives, but New Mexico is unique that it's legislative driven.
That Yeah, that's correct. New Mexico does not have the ballot initiative process that Oregon and Colorado and a lot of other states do. So it has to be passed through the legislature. Thanks to the fierce work of advocates for many years up there at the legislature. By the time it finally came around, it passed with huge bipartisan support, passed in the Senate 33-4, and then in the House 56-8. So great job by the advocates that have been working on this for a long time, building that bipartisan support.
That's awesome. It's great to see what can be done by a legislature if they actually work together. Yeah, Matt, let me ask you now, because you have a unique perspective as somebody who's actually an attorney who advises clients in psychedelic law, but also, is part of the I don't like to call it an industry, but part of the space itself.
Mhm.
Kind of what's your, tell us about your journey as jumping into the pursuing the license.
Sure, thanks, Robert. And sorry I can't be in the city of brotherly love with you guys, but duty calls out here in Colorado, as Robert mentioned. I'm an attorney with Antithesis Law, so I advise clients in the space, ketamine practitioners, underground facilitators that want to start a business in Colorado, kind of go above ground, nonprofits, research institutions, you name it. In that capacity, I was approached by a group of entrepreneurs who were who operate a functional mushroom company called Myco Love Farms in Colorado. Jake Plummer, former Denver Broncos quarterback, is an early investor. He's also a pal, and a huge advocate for the benefits of both functional mushrooms and the more magical varieties. But so they were just like, "Hey, what just happened in Colorado? Like, tell us what the opportunities are." And we had meeting after meeting, and it just became clear that we were pretty aligned in our like view of what's possible in this space, but also what to like avoid. So the risks and the benefits. And so they asked me to join their team as the chief legal officer, and we ended up calling the company Entheogen with a Y at the end, Entheogen. Started that about a year ago, and have been just slowly putting together a team, a business model, and applying for licenses to hopefully be what we believe is the first vertically integrated legal natural medicine business in the state, the country, and probably the world. And what that means is we're going after licenses for cultivation with a product manufacturing, cultivation, product manufacturing with an extraction endorsement, and the healing center itself. In Colorado, you can't own and operate. You can't operate a testing center if you operate in the other license types. So we're gonna let the good folks who are testing these mushrooms do that. But we just thought that creating an ecosystem where we knew what we were growing and how we were growing them, and also we knew because and then we knew what we were giving to the patients, and with access to that kind of data, we believe that we're going to get real insights that lead to better outcomes for patients. I saw Rhonda from Solutions, her panel an hour and a half ago, and touched on a lot of the same kind of beliefs and understandings that we have, which is that this is not just about how many grams of mushrooms. This is not just about how many milligrams of psilocybin or psilocin. There are a lot of other compounds, minor alkaloids, tryptamines, what have you, in these fungi. And then also how you grow them and how you extract them can really affect the bioavailability and the subjective experience. And so the outcomes. And so we're not doing human subject research. We're just going to get insights from the cultivation process that includes things like genetics and what biomass we use to grow it on, and the potency and the delivery mechanism. So because we're getting an extraction endorsement, we are going to be able to make tinctures and gummies and a number of other delivery mechanisms that are allowed under the state law. And not a lot of other people are doing that in Colorado because extraction of cannabis, extraction of these compounds from mushrooms is a pretty technical scientific process, but we're already doing that at our sister company, the Functional Mushroom Company. And so we're basically just transporting that IP over and switching the spores. So yeah, we're be going through the licensing process because we're vertically integrated. It's been a bit more involved than the folks who are kind of just starting a mom and pop healing center, kind of that looks a lot like a therapist's office. But happy to say that we've got a cultivation facility secured as well as a building secured for the healing center, a 7,000 square foot facility in Golden. So waiting on the licenses from the state, and then very excited to get to work.
That's awesome. That's it's really impressive, great work, and impressive to see occurring, within the United States. Now we heard Dora, the speaker too, also talking about how in Colorado she was able to, it presented research opportunities. Hamilton, we see like states pursuing a couple of different like routes here, where we see Colorado that's kind of expanding access to to these compounds from a research perspective also, but while other states continually just add to this laundry list of scheduled drugs. I guess my question are, what are your thoughts on how like this affects scientific research in general and innovation? And second of all, criminalizing all these drugs out there, what does that do regarding novel substances prevalence kind of popping up? I think you're muted.
There we go. Yeah, I was speaking at a conference recently, and I said that people should categorically oppose the prohibition of any drugs, and people laughed or they thought that that was kind of a ridiculous thing to say. But I don't think it is at all. I think that at every juncture, we have thought that it wasn't necessarily a big deal. Like I'm sure it felt sort of obscure when Ibogaine was placed in Schedule One, and now we are aware of what a tremendous hindrance that is to treatment of substance use disorder. And so it's very short-sighted to ever think it's okay for anything to be illegal. You know, recently the DEA announced like an obscure opioid, the pyrrolidino metonidazine, right? Something that I'm sure no one here has heard of. And sure, why not just make it illegal? But the historical trend has always been that after we do that, we then realize it was a mistake and it's very hard to undo. And then once we start to liberalize these things and allow access for scientific, therapeutic, or recreational use, the opposite happens. Suddenly, we can do experiments that were otherwise very difficult to do. We learn about new medical benefits that were hard to study previously. And I think it really pays dividends.
Cool. I one of the things I noticed during this legalization process too was, yeah, we had things like in Colorado where we passed a very broad sort of the Natural Medicine Health Act, and then it was kind of reined in through legislative action that completely kind of redefined the program. Right now, we're seeing that New Mexico's jumping into that space. I guess my questions are: is once something's passed, maybe Ken can give us some insight here too with New Jersey's experience. When something's passed, you come down to the point where you have to make the actual rules applying that law. Then, what kind of did you kids see like outside influences and what type of vested interest jump in there?
Yes, the regulatory process that follows legalization is very complicated and detailed and subject to a great many outside influences. So, we got involved in that very early on. I got my master's in public administration, so I was quite aware of the regulatory process. And, we made a point to be there. But on the other hand, unfortunately, a lot of the politicians were influenced by outside people who were very conservative and wanted to. They did away with home cultivation in our legalization of medical marijuana. They did away with so many other things. Recognition of out-of-state ID cards, using chronic pain as a qualifying condition. So we had to fight every step of the way. And then we had, right after Governor Corzine signed the bill, we had Governor Chris Christie come on board, and he was opposed to any expansion of medical marijuana. So it was just a very, 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 and it continues to be a time-consuming process going through the regulatory process, even after these bills pass into law.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Robert, can I jump in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was involved in the campaign for the NMHA. And even before the law passed, there was a lot of controversy. There were, different factions, even within the Colorado psychedelic community, that had very different opinions about how we should approach this. Some thought decrim first or decrim only. Others thought medical only. What we came up with was a compromise. But then you're right, after the law passed, the legislature came in and repealed that ballot initiative and replaced it with its own, legislation. Largely kept the structure intact, added a lot more, details. But I don't think we saw a lot of influence from, at least not like corporate influence, the kind of influence that a lot of people talk about and are concerned about. In Colorado, because of the structure of the law, we put a cap on the number of licenses that any individual can be affiliated with, and that's 5. And so, there's not really the opportunity for large scale kind of like consolidation the way we saw in cannabis with these large MSOs kind of coming in. And after the mom and pop stores got the industry off the ground, they swooped in and with economies of scale and efficiencies, like put them out of business. And then you see this across the country, then quality kind of suffers. And so we just kind of we learned lessons from cannabis in the way that we structured the program. in Colorado, and I think that led to less opportunities for influence and less real interest from like um, big deep pockets because like this is not the Green Rush 2.0, not in Colorado, not the way we set it up.
That's a very helpful kind of a review of like how things moved along in Colorado there. Brett, how are things going with the rulemaking process in New Mexico?
Yeah, so we are just getting off the ground on that. So as part of the law, the State Department of Health is who's running the program. It's been put together with the medical cannabis program. The director of that is a fantastic guy named Dominic Zerlo, who I got a lot of faith in. But they've appointed a 9-person advisory board. To help the Department of Health with the rulemaking. Those are mostly designated healthcare providers. There's a specific seat for a tribal representative, a veteran, and other various health ones. But they're going to be working on that. And what's interesting, is our law is very broad in the details, and this rulemaking process is really going to say, really going to determine how successful this program is, what access looks like. Specifically, all the program says is that they define the Medical Psilocybin Act as a clinician administering or a qualified patient taking psilocybin in an approved setting in accordance with the Medical Psilocybin Act. So that's as much as it says about who can give it, right? What does a clinician mean? What is an approved setting? Right now, there's currently only 4 qualifying conditions, very limited. It's depression, PTSD, substance use disorders, and end-of-life care. But then it also includes other conditions approved by the department. That's how medical cannabis was done. It started with very limited qualifying conditions and was expanded. So our advisory board is going to actually be having their first meeting coming up here in a couple weeks, December 5th. Check out the Department of Health website if you really want to see how that process works, how the sausage is made, and who's going to be on that board. That's when they'll be announcing all that officially as well. But I'm very confident. I think I'm hopeful that they seem to want to take a lot of public input. They've already been doing some listening sessions. They're going to be traveling around the state to get public input to really hopefully make this a program that works for patients.
That's great. That's great to hear. Well, we are, everything's been running long today because there's been so much good information. But so we need to wrap up here. So if everybody could just take 1 minute and kind of say what they, view as like, what they would recommend people to do. I'll start off with Hamilton first.
This is not related to states, but I would check out the Federal Register and see whenever a drug is being made illegal and get involved in trying to prevent that from happening, whatever the drug is. I assure you that making it illegal will not solve any problems and will create enormous numbers of new ones.
Yeah, 1,000%.
As you all probably figured out, I couldn't agree more with Hamilton there. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, and Hamilton, I get those emails too, and I send them to Robert usually. So, yeah, I would say if you think that the drug war is a war on people and the human rights issue of our time, then support legalization efforts at the state and federal level. I think, we saw in cannabis, 40 states legalizing despite ongoing legal criminalization at the federal level put pressure on the government. And that's why we're having, even though they're drawn out and frustratingly slow, conversations about descheduling or rescheduling. So support efforts in states, even where you don't live and have never set foot, don't know anybody, and never plan to visit, because it sends a message to the rest of the country and the world that this is happening in the U.S. and it starts a domino effect. And also come visit Colorado. It's the most progressive drug policy reform in the country. And there's a whole community out here it's a really special place. It's not an accident that this is where this happened. It's because this community existed before the law was passed. And so I would also say get involved locally, wherever you are. Find the others, as Terrence McKenna said, and don't forget to have some fun.
Awesome. Brett, you want to?
Yeah, yeah, just really, kind of both on what Hamilton and Matt had to say, and Ken earlier as well, is, get it. Yeah, these are issues that the science speaks for itself. It's great that all that's going on, but the policy is what really needs to change for people to be able to access these incredible plant medicines, and that all starts at the grassroots level. All of us here have spoken about their experiences getting involved in that process, and it's something that it's real intimidating at first, but it's easier than you think to just go in and go into these places and share your stories, share your support, and get involved with people working on this at your local level. I assure you, it's happening everywhere. There's opportunities in all kinds of different ways for people to share their stories and contribute to this movement. So yeah, thanks to everyone on our panel here today that's been working on this for many years, and encourage everyone that's listening to get up there with us and go get involved in it. Thanks.
Ken?
No, thank you. I did forget to mention that New Jersey has a bill for psilocybin in its legislature right now, so that's something we're working on, and that's an important. These incremental steps in drug policy reform are very important, but the real villain is the war on drugs. Again, it is a war on people. It's expensive, it's inefficient, and it's counterproductive. It makes the problem worse. It's a healthcare issue. It should not be handled by the criminal justice system at all. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll just close with saying, it's amazing what, regular citizens can do when they, take an effort and, try to affect change. And, because, average regular citizens, really can affect change. Also support organizations. Also, too, people need support to do this work. I formed a shameless plug. I formed an organization called the Rights and Reason Project. Feel free to check me out on that. Thank you. And, give a damn, fight like hell, and don't let them do this. Thanks.
Thanks, Robert. Great to see you, Hamilton and Matt. And Ken, look forward to meeting you in person one day.
Likewise, good to see you, Brett. Good to see you, Hamilton.
Yeah, y'all have a good one.